Who are you? And who are you is the question of the day. Not the Instagram version of yourself, not the self that you explain to your family while you eating dinner, not you who lives every day. Who are you? And you don't have to answer that just now, but throughout this podcast, definitely take some time to be honest with yourself to find out who you are. The real you, the one that changes when a certain someone walks into the room, and the one that we don't get to see every day, the one that comes out behind closed doors. And today we're going to be talking about identity. So without further ado, welcome. Welcome to the Behind Closed Door podcast where shit gets real when the door clicks shut. I'm your host, Jordan Thomas, and this is episode 2. So yeah, man, let's go ahead and dive right into it. First things first, if you are a returning viewer, welcome back, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. Like I said earlier, this is Behind Closed Door podcast where we just have real, raw, authentic conversations of stuff that we just don't say out loud. And as y'all see, we do got a new setup going here. So let me know what you think down below in the comments. Is it gas or is it trash? You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, let's go ahead and just dive right into it. Like I said, today we're going to be talking about identity. Identity is something that's confusing to a lot of us. Because what is identity? I could give you the book definition if you want it, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about fact. We're here to talk about the real. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's that, and that will kind of bring me to the question of the day of the podcast of who are you? Who are you when nobody's watching? Who are you late at night when you're all alone? And I think those are very important questions to, cultivate our identity because I feel like most of all our identity todays in societies are cultivated from the titles we hold or the accolades that we've achieved. Myself, for instance, I'm a firefighter. I'm a U.S. Marine. Those are two very high earning titles and high earning accolades. But if you take that away, who am I? And I challenge you to ask yourself that. Let's even break it down to some simple terms. If you're not a daughter, if you're not a brother, if you're not a mother, if you're not a father, if I'm not a twin, if I'm not an older brother, who am I at the end of the day? What traits, what characteristics do I possess to say this is me? And I think a lot of us struggle with that internally and not just men, but everybody for that fact, women as well. So I challenge you to understand that a person who doesn't know their identity doesn't know their value. And value is everything in society we live in. What value do you bring to the next person beside you? What value do you bring to yourself as an individual? So we'll just go ahead and get it started off with the public self. Who are you to the public? In society, we all have roles. We all have roles to live under. We all have roles that we take up in our everyday lives, whether that being the funny one, the one who got it all together, the strong one. We all have roles. And I feel like these roles, they put us in an act. Um, and in a more simpler form, I feel like every day or early on in life, for lack of better terms, we learn how to act. If you get what I'm saying, like we all learn how to act in some way, shape, or form, whether that be showing ourselves to a certain crowd or not showing ourselves to this individual because they don't like that about me. And I feel like after we learn that, we rehearse it and rehearse it, we rehearse it so much through everyday activity that it becomes a performance. So my question is, are you performing? Are you performing it in your everyday life, or are you truly being who you are meant to be? Um, and that's a tough question to ask because one day you'll wake up and you'll ask yourself, is that who I am, or is that who I learned to be? What behaviors have you learned, or what characteristics or traits have you picked up to make yourself more acceptable? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, because I feel like to the public, we all portray one thing, but behind closed doors, it's another, and that brings me to my next segment of that private self. Who are you in private? Um, 'Cause, it's different. When you're alone, when you're by yourself, you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to be soft, you're allowed to contradict yourself, you're allowed to be unsure. And I guess for lack of better terms, when we are alone, when we are behind closed doors, that's when the mask comes off. That's when it loosens at least. So who are you underneath your mask? Are you caring? Are you loving? Or, are you still trying to put on this tough body act so you won't be looked at as soft or weak or individual who can't hold their own? And there's nothing wrong with being who you are in society unapologetically, and that's something that I struggled with for a long time. It came a point in time where I was playing both sides of the ball, playing both sides of the field in terms of trying to portray a certain image to one type of crowd, but also portraying the image to another type of crowd. And I guess to really get over that, I just had to ask myself, if no one sees this true version of me, does it really matter who I am in either light? because only I know who I am and only I know who I wanna be. I guess, like, one big thing about me, I love art, like, I love any form of art, whether that's poetry, painting, like, music, like, any form of art, I love it. But some of my closest friends didn't even know that for the longest time just because I thought playing an instrument or loving to paint or learning how to speak words in a prophetic manner was considered weak, on the other hand, as far as being a man, considered weak and just not manly enough, I would say. But yeah, that's one fact about me. I actually love music. I played the trombone growing up, for anybody wondering out there, and I did sing in a choir for quite some time growing up. But I guess you wouldn't be able to tell that off first glance because that wasn't a part of my identity. That wasn't who I was. I always wanted to be that macho man, Mr. Can't be fucked with, the guy who excelled in sports, the guy who, you know what I'm saying, who could do this and do that. But when it came down to it, I would listen to blues instrumentals to go to sleep sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the softer version of me that nobody got to see. But as I stated again, if no one sees it, does it still count? So yeah, man, who are you in private? I feel like figuring out who you are in private is very crucial to your identity, who you want to be in life, and there's nothing wrong with going through trials and tribulations, finding out. Let's just take a moment and shout out Ghost. I love these energy drinks. And if you know something about me, I definitely wasn't a big fan of energy drinks. And one of my friends like just tried one day and I always thought it was a placebo effect. And then I tried it and kind of been hooked ever since. So I don't know, but let's get back to it. So yeah, rolling to the next segment. When we talk about identity, we talk about it like it's permanent, like it's some type of destination, but it's not. You're allowed to outgrow, you're allowed to change values, change your style, change your morals because identity is ever changing. I feel like if you're constantly changing, that just means you're learning and unlearning new things that no longer serve you or no longer holds value to the person that you wanna be deep down inside. So, stop thinking that you have to be this one thing for everybody or be something that you're not just so you could, quote, unquote, "be accepted" in today's terms. For the longest, I used to smoke. I used to be a heavy smoker. Smoking was a part of my identity. Until it wasn't no more, and I thought if I put down this drug or if I put down this vice that I had, and who would I be? Who would I be if I couldn't wake up and, smoke, or if I couldn't go to sleep and smoke, if I couldn't like, I literally used to do everything high, or under the influence. I'm not gonna say high, I should say under the influence. I literally used to do everything because that used to be part of my identity. If you saw me, then I was under the influence. I literally used to play in some of my football and basketball games high, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was part of my identity, and trying to get rid of that or trying to change that, it wasn't easy, but I realized if I'm trying to become a certain person, then certain stuff no longer serve me, so letting that go was something that I had to do, I had to take account about, just put it to the side and look at me now, like, it doesn't faze me, like, I don't have no ill will towards people who do it, I don't judge anybody who does it or don't, but that's no longer who I am, I'm no longer a smoker, and they say, it takes 21 days to build a habit, and it takes, I think, like 90 or something to get rid of one, but I think the first step to breaking a habit or breaking any vice for that matter is not saying that I'm trying to quit, putting it in existence of saying, "I'm not a smoker anymore." As you speak these words, "I'm not," or "I'm trying," that makes it part of your identity of who you are and what you're trying to overcome versus if you just tell yourself, "I'm not a smoker," when you look into the mirror, you aren't a smoker, you know what I'm saying? You gotta speak your change into existence because you can only lie to the man in the mirror, you know what I'm saying? That's the only person that's gonna face reality with you at the end of the day is the person that you wake up and see, and I think it says um, in James, chapter James 1 verses 22 through 23, it says, "Be doers and not hearers of the word, or or to be a or to be a doer and not a hearer is like a man who looks himself in the mirror, sees himself, goes away, and instantly forgets the man he saw." Um, Something along those lines. I will drop the correct verse, down below, but that is something that, I take pride in. Just being what you say, just doing what you say, and, being what you say you are gonna be. I'm the type to say what I'm gonna do, and then I do it. Shout out Lil Baby, he dropped that gem on us. But yeah, so that's just, I want y'all to understand, like, identity is ever changing, it's messy, it's not meant to look pretty. So you just gotta hone in and really think about, who it is that you wanna be in this world and what it is that you're trying to overcome and realize that change is okay. If you aren't changing, then you aren't growing. If you aren't what I'm saying? If you're still that same person 10 years ago, I know we're in 2026 now, and for the first month of January, everybody was like 2016 to 2026. Me personally, I didn't participate in that trend, but I think the significance of it was to show change and to show like I'm no longer who I was 10 years ago, and if you were, because some of y'all were, I ain't even going some of y'all were, then you need to look in the mirror and do some soul searching because if you look up, next thing you know, it'll be 2036, and that's another 10 years, and you'll still be that same person, 'cause time will pass you by. So I guess I'll roll into the last segment before we get ready to wrap this thing up is, hiding. The cost of hiding our identities, hiding parts of ourselves is okay, you know what I'm saying? Not everybody is meant to see our true selves. But at what point are you gonna continue to hide? Because the more you hide, the harder it is for somebody to get to know you. The harder it is for someone oh, excuse me. The harder it is for someone to value you or appreciate you for who and what you really are. I take it back to like I was saying, nobody ever knew how much I love music or how much I like poetry or art itself. So when people were trying to get to know me or just find out who I really am, they would get me stuff that wouldn't serve me, you know what I'm saying? They would get me a gift that I wouldn't truly appreciate because that's not who I am versus now one of my friends, they'll get me a vinyl or a record, and it's like, that's probably the greatest gift I can receive because they know my love for music. You get what I'm saying? So it's more stuff of, like, hiding from the people around you only deteriorates your circle even more versus even just hiding from yourself, you know? Hiding your identity, it does keeps you safe, but it also keeps you lonely, because and nobody is meant to be in this world alone. We all need companionship of some way, some sort of form. So yeah, the more you hide, the harder it is for someone to get to know you. And everyone deserves to be known. And when I say know, I mean really known. And I understand that's a scary thought, but someone deserves it. And even if that someone is just you, you deserve it. You owe it to yourself to find out who you really are and to be transformed by not, by not by the world, but by the renewing of your mind. And I feel like you can only do that if you do some real deep soul searching and but just try to be that light for everybody. Yeah. That's kind of the spiel on identity. Yeah, I ask you again as we get ready to wrap it and close it up. Who are you? You know what I'm saying? Think about every version, the kid version of you, the adult version of you, the you that you are today, the you that's you in the video. Who are you? How have you changed? How have you grown? Is that the real you? And just and really do some soul searching and maybe the truest version of ourselves aren't who we are every day. Or maybe it's who we are in those solid moments in between our acts, in between our daily routines. Um if this episode made you think, share it with somebody who might need to see it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Like I said, follow us on all social medias at the BCD Podcast. Yeah, let's try to get this video to, I don't know, let's say 50 likes. We'll start small. 50 likes, 10 comments. Turn on your post notifications. We will see y'all next week. And don't forget to go tune into episode 1. I will drop that down below. But once again, this is the Behind Closed Door Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Thomas, and I will see you next week.